Chapter 3. The Crucible. The stench hit me first. A nauseating cocktail of damp earth, decay, and something metallic that coated the back of my throat. It was the smell of old blood. The Gauntlet. Even the name was a promise of pain. I stood on a crumbling precipice, one of 50 recruits, staring down into a chasm that clawed its way into the Citadel's foundations like a festering wound. 100 feet below, a maze of jagged rock and viscous shadow awaited. Proctors in gray uniforms, their faces impassive, flanked us on either side, their presence a silent threat. My pulse kicked hard, a desperate rhythm against the roar of adrenaline. This was the first true test, not just of strength but of control. For 3 years, I had ruthlessly suppressed the void within me, a silent, star-dusted sea that churned with a terrifying eagerness. It sensed the shadows below, the raw magic clinging to the rock, and it wanted to answer. It wanted to play. My fingers curled into fists, my nails digging painful crescents into my palms. To unleash it now would be a death sentence. General Vane's decree was absolute. All void magic users were to be executed on sight. A horn blared, a guttural sound that echoed off the chasm walls. The trial had begun. One by one, recruits were shoved toward the edge. I watched a boy with straw-colored hair, his face pale with terror, conjure a shield of wind. It shattered like glass the moment he landed, and the shadowkin, vaguely canine forms of solidified darkness were on him in an instant. I flinched, turning away, the sounds of his screams swallowed by the chasm. "Move it, Outer Ringer!" A proctor's hand shoved me forward. The slur was as sharp as a slap. I gritted my teeth, the familiar sting of resentment a welcome distraction from the fear. I took a breath, the foul air filling my lungs, and jumped. The fall was a dizzying rush of wind and adrenaline. I tucked and rolled as I'd seen others do, the impact jarring my bones. I landed on a narrow ledge, the rock slick with something I didn't want to identify. Instantly, the shadows converged. 2 shadowkin, their forms shifting and uncertain, lunged at me. I threw out a hand, a jet of flame sputtering from my palm. It was a pathetic excuse for an attack, a candle against a storm, but it was all I dared to show. The beasts recoiled, more surprised than hurt. It bought me a precious second. I scrambled back, my boots slipping on the treacherous ground, and ran. The gauntlet was a blur of desperate survival. I dodged and weaved, my small size an advantage in the narrow passages. I used my weak flames to create diversions, but never to kill. The screams of other recruits echoed around me, a gruesome soundtrack to my flight. Panic was a physical thing, a icy grip around my throat. My control was fraying. The void magic inside me was a rising tide, threatening to breach the dam of my will. It whispered promises of power, of survival. Just a little, it seemed to say. Just enough to live. I was cornered. A dead end. A sheer wall of rock on 3 sides and a hulking shadowkin larger than the others blocking the only exit. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, but in a dark, forgotten corner of a pit designed to cull the weak. My defiance, a stubborn, iron-willed thing forged in the poverty of the outer rings, roared to life. If I was going to die, I would die fighting! As the beast lunged, a figure dropped from a higher ledge, landing between me and the creature with a silent grace that was almost as terrifying as the beast itself. Commandant Kalen Thorne. His jet-black hair seemed to drink the dim light, a stark contrast to the silver-white strands that had escaped my own braid to frame my face. He hadn't drawn a weapon. He didn't need one. Shadows coiled around his arms like living things, his mere presence a crushing weight of power. He didn't even look at the beast. His gaze, a midnight stare that seemed to pierce right through me, was locked on my face. It was the same chilling, momentary connection I'd felt in the courtyard, but amplified, intensified into a low, dangerous hum in the air between us. The shadowkin, a creature of instinct and hunger, hesitated. It could sense the predator in its midst, the greater threat. But its hunger for me, for the spark of void it sensed was too strong. It lunged, not at Kalen, but around him, its claws extended towards me. Kalen moved, a blur of black leather and controlled fury. He didn't attack the beast. He reached for me. His gloved hand closed around my arm. The moment his fingers touched my skin, the world exploded. It was not a gentle spark. It was a violent, jarring collision. A sharp jolt tore a gasp from my lungs, like grabbing a live wire. It was a shockwave of raw, untamed power. A brutal clash of his shadow and my hidden void. The air crackled, the scent of ozone sharp and clean. The reaction was a physical blow that sent my own magic into an absolute frenzy, desperate to fight off the intrusion of his darkness. Kalen snatched his hand back, as if he'd been burned, his perpetual scowl deepening into a mask of pure shock. He stared at his gloved fingers, then at me, his dark eyes narrowing in dangerous calculation. He had felt it too, the unnatural, violent repulsion of our magics colliding. But the moment was shattered. The shockwave of our connection had not gone unnoticed. A new sound echoed through the chasm, a deep, resonant roar that made the very rock tremble. It was a sound of ancient hunger, of a power far greater than the Shadowkin we had been fighting. From the deepest, darkest corner of the chasm, a new horror emerged. It was massive, easily twice the size of the other beasts. Its form a churning vortex of shadow and rage. This was no mere Shadowkin. This was an alpha, drawn by the incredible surge of magic we had just unleashed. It ignored the other recruits, its glowing, hateful eyes fixed solely on me. It knew I was the source of the disturbance. It charged, its roar shaking the very foundations of the citadel. Kalen was already moving, his shadows rising to meet the threat, but he was too far away. The beast was too fast. There was no time to think, no time to weigh the consequences. There was only survival. The void magic inside me, already awakened and thrumming from the contact with Kalen, didn't just scream anymore. It broke free. I threw my hand out, not in a conscious act of will, but in a raw, desperate instinct to live. A sliver of my power, a ribbon of pure, star-dusted void, shot from my palm. It wasn't a torrent, just a fragment, but it was more than enough. It struck the charging alpha, and the beast didn't just dissolve. It imploded, its massive form collapsing in on itself with a silent flash of violet light, leaving nothing behind. Silence. A profound, ringing silence descended upon the chasm. The fighting had stopped. Every recruit, every proctor, every eye was fixed on me, on the spot where the alpha had just ceased to exist. My hand was still outstretched, trembling. The faint amethyst glow of my magic faded from my skin. I had done it. I had saved myself, and I had just signed my own death warrant. Slowly, I lowered my hand, my gaze lifting to meet the one pair of eyes I dreaded above all others. Kalen Thorne was no longer looking at the space where the beast had been. His full, undivided attention was on me. His face was a mask of stone, but his eyes like a starless sky, saw everything. They saw the sliver of forbidden power. They saw the truth I had guarded my entire life. He knew. And in the deadly world of the Obsidian Citadel, what Kalen Thorne knew he could use, or destroy. As he stared at me, his expression a dark, unreadable promise. I couldn't decide which was worse.